When the Osmo Pocket first came out, I fell in love with this little camera right away. Not in a weird way, but man, I loved it. Then, when the Pocket 2 came out, it was even better. I loved it. I love the Pocket 2. Now, I have made a few tips and trick videos on the Pocket 2 and the Osmo Pocket, but in today's video, it's not about what you should do with the Pocket 2, but it's more about what you shouldn't do with this little camera. Here is my list of 8 mistakes we make with the Pocket 2. First off, this video is about the mistakes we make when using the Pocket 2. Now, you'll notice that I did say we because I have and I still do make lots of mistakes with this little camera. So, I'm not here picking on anybody. I'm just as guilty as anybody else and maybe even more guilty, if you know what I mean. Now, if you're here because you have the Pocket 2 or the Osmo Pocket, or maybe you're just interested in this camera, please consider subscribing because I have quite a few videos on the Pocket 2 and the older Osmo Pocket. Now, the first thing you shouldn't do with the Pocket 2 is worrying about the micro SD card. Now, you don't need the fastest micro SD card for the Pocket 2. Now, I do recommend a U3 or a V30 SD card. The bigger the better. I have 2 128 gig cards that I use and I really like them. Now, you don't just pop that card into the camera and press record. It's really important to format the card in the Pocket 2. Now, this goes for all cards and all cameras. It's really important to take that card and format that card in the camera that you're going to be using. When you format the card, it creates the file and the folder structures on that card for that specific camera. When you pop it in the computer, you can see those folders. Now, you can just go ahead, pop that card in and press record, and most times you won't notice a problem or a big problem. But there may come a time when it does become a problem, especially if you're like me and you use different cameras, and sometimes you want to switch micro SD cards in those cameras. Now, I have dedicated SD cards for all my cameras, which makes life a lot easier. Now, the next big mistake we make when it comes to the Pocket 2 is with the microphones and our audio, and that is covering up the microphones on the Pocket 2. Now, I think we can all agree that the audio on the Pocket 2 is so much better than the original OG Osmo Pocket. Now, it's night and day. In fact, I have no problems using the built-in mics on the Pocket 2 when I'm vlogging. I might be out shooting something, I'll use it for vlogging, no problems. Now, I still have the Rode Video Micro, which is a great mic, but I've been so impressed with the built-in mics on the Pocket 2, but that sometimes I'll just go ahead and use those. Now, there is a simple fix for this. Keep those big dirty fingers off the mic ports. There are 4 mics on this camera, so you gotta be careful, but just make sure that you're not covering up the mics that are directional to you. If I'm vlogging with a Pocket 2, I normally like to attach it to a small tripod that I can use as an extension rod. This way, my big dirty fingers don't cover up any of the microphones. Okay, now the next big mistake is with ND filters. That's right, I said ND filters. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't use ND filters because ND filters are actually my favorite accessory for the Pocket 2. But the problem is that sometimes we don't use the correct level of ND filters on our lens on our Pocket 2. Now, most of the times, if we're out shooting on a nice, beautiful sunny day, I will just slap on an ND32, maybe with a polarizer on there, and it will give you some fantastic results and allow you to control the shutter to where you want it. But the problem comes when then we head into the woods on a hike or something like that. Then we do not change our ND filters. Sometimes we just up the ISO on the camera to compensate for the ND level. Now, this will cause all kinds of problems because now we're raising the ISO level and it's going to give us the proper video levels, but now we're increasing the noise level in our video, and you never want to do that. The Pocket 2 has a small sensor, so you want to try to shoot at ISO 100 or as close to it to get the best image out of your camera. Now, I've been guilty of this myself in the past, mainly because I'm lazy or if I'm in a rush and I have to get somewhere else. But just switch out the ND filters. You can do it quickly. I use the Freewell all-day pack. They sent it to me to do a review, and it's been a great pack. You have 8 of them in there, so it's super easy to switch out with the magnets There are also now variable ND filters out there for the Pocket 2. I haven't used them yet, but this is a great idea. Now, these will be the smallest variable ND filters that I have ever used, so it'll be really interesting to see how they work and get those tiny little fingers around that little variable ND. It'll be interesting. Now, the next big mistake we make is using the wrong frame rates. Bear with me here. Now, I'm not going to debate with you on which are the best frame rates for your videos and what you should shoot at, because those are fighting terms. You know, people get into big arguments, not me. Now, most of the times I do shoot at 4K 24 frames because I like the quality of 4K, but I also really like the look of 24 frames per second. Now, that's just a personal choice. Don't get mad at me. It's a personal choice, just like pineapple on a pizza, which I do enjoy from time to time. Again, don't get mad at me. Moving on. So, the mistake happens when we want to slow something down when we're editing. If I'm shooting a vlog, it will be most likely in 24 frames if I'm walking and talking. But if I'm shooting B-roll, I will want to shoot something in 4K at 60 frames per second, knowing that later on I'm going to slow down that footage to get some really nice, smooth, slow motion. Now, there have been times where I've forgotten to switch over 60 frames or 24 frames, and then if I'm shooting at 24 frames, I really can't slow it down. If you do try to slow it down, your footage will look really lousy. It won't look smooth and it won't be good. Now, you can make the argument that you should shoot at 60 frames per second, then you won't have to worry about slowing anything down or speeding anything up. It's just a good frame rate. And that's a good point. For me personally, again, I just like shooting at 24 frames per second. I like that look right out of the camera. Now, another mistake is relying too much on that joystick for zooming in on our shots. I love the fact that the Pocket 2 has this joystick. I really love the fact that now you can zoom in and get tighter shots on an object or a subject or whatever you're shooting. But what I don't love is any kind of digital zoom. Digital zooms will always affect your image quality. The more you zoom in, the more it's going to affect your image. Now, I'm not saying it's horrible on this camera. I'm actually pretty impressed when you zoom in. It looks like a pretty decent digital zoom. You're not zooming in too much. But anytime you add that digital zoom and you're not using your lenses to zoom in and stuff, you're going to have problems with your image. I just don't like digital zooms at all. So be careful when you're zooming in and using that joystick to zoom in on your footage on the Pocket 2. Now, one of the biggest complaints I hear about the Pocket 2 and the Osmo Pocket is that it's just too bumpy when we are walking with this camera. As we walk and shoot with the Pocket 2, you will notice some up and down movements. This happens on the Pocket 2, the Osmo Pocket, and in fact on most gimbals. The more expensive ones you won't notice as much. So you have to walk really slowly. I'm sure you've heard by now all about the ninja walk or the catwalk to minimize those gimbal movements up and down. Well, I prefer the old hold my fart walk. This is me just gently walking as if I'm trying to hold in a toot. Sorry about that. Now this takes practice, of course, the walking, not the holding in of gases. The more you practice, the better you will get at it and the better your shots will look. It will look even better if you take that footage and slow it down at 60 frames, of course. The higher the frame rate and you slow it down, the footage will just smooth out as you're walking and you'll get rid of any of those micro jitters that you might see, and it really does smooth out your footage. Now, this might be considered cheating. Now you're slowing this footage down, but you want to get the smoothest, the silkiest looking footage, and sometimes you have to use those methods where you slow down the video to give you those shots. And I really like the idea of walking and slowing down that shot. I find that it looks really, really well. And even if I'm walking as carefully as possible, you still will notice a little bit of jump. But if you practice, you will get better at it. The second to last mistake we make when we're shooting time lapses and motion lapses. Now on your phone, if you head into the Mimo app, you will notice that you have options for taking time lapses, motion lapses, and hyperlapses. There's an option of just doing video, or option of JPEG and video, or RAW and video. Now I suggest you do either JPEG and video or RAW and video. Now this will give you more control over your image and it will give you a more 4K image, if not better, and you can manipulate that in the end. If you do just the video mode, it will give you a 1080p max file, which is fine, it still looks good. When you shoot in RAW mode, it will take still photos instead of a video. Then you will have to take those still photos and create a sequence of images that you can bring into your editing software, whatever you edit on, and now you have a much higher quality image and video because now your sequences have become a video. From here, you can zoom in on your time lapse or your motion lapse, or you can do a pan or a tilt, whatever you want. You have a lot more options, and I love to have options when it comes to time lapses and motion lapses. So if you want to do that, go into your Mimo app and look through your settings and make sure you switch it from video to raw. Okay, the last mistake we make, actually, I do not make this mistake anymore, seriously, is please take your Pocket 2 everywhere you go. On all your shoots and even any of your trips, if you're going up with the family, take it with you. It's so easy, it's so small, you never know when you're gonna wanna whip this thing out and use it. I bring it with me all the time. There are times when I was out on a shoot and I wish I had it with me. So now I just bring it everywhere I go. It goes in my bag, simple, no problem. I bring it everywhere I go. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this wasn't a mistake in watching my video. Get it? We're talking about mistakes. You know what? You probably get it. If you have any questions, or if you have any tips or any mistakes that we do make with the Pocket 2 that you think are interesting, please let me know in the comment section. I love talking about this camera. So if anything you want to talk about, let me know in the comment section. The last thing I'm going to say, it's not really a tip or a mistake, is for you not to be too hard on yourself when using this camera. It's a weird little camera. And if you just picked it up, don't expect that you're gonna get fantastic shots right away. Just practice with it and you will get better. YouTube and the internet are full of people that really know how to use this camera to get some really good footage. Don't compare yourself to that right away. Just practice with this camera and you're gonna get better. Don't beat yourself up because your footage doesn't look as good as theirs. All right, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video and we will see you next time.